Marty Raney was creating a life that most people wouldn't ever dare to contemplate long before Homestead Rescue ever appeared on television. Living amid bears, raising a family in the harsh wilderness of Alaska, and logging on floating camps. However, the tough self-assurance you see on film is just the tip of the iceberg. The show never conveys the depth, drama, and complexity of the story that lies beneath it. And a number of unexpected scandals and personal disappointments in recent years have left many people thinking about one thing. What was Marty Raney's true fate? The narrative of Marty Raney begins on July 28, 1956 in North Bend, Washington, where he was essentially born into nature. He never liked city living, not even as a child. The closest neighbor was a mile distant from his childhood house, which was located at the end of Mount Si Road, and that was ideal for Marty. He spent his days climbing, scrambling, and exploring while growing up at the foot of Mount Tenerife. He had no technical training, just a lot of interest and enthusiasm. He was trekking 35 meters through the Cascades by the time he was 12 or 13 years old. That unadulterated passion for nature only deepened. Great enough that he quit school at the age of 16 to work as a logger, yet he still had a great need for more wildness. At the age of 18, he took the action that would change the course of his life. He made his way to Alaska. He never forgot the moment he saw Alaska for the first time from the cockpit of a 737. As they took off, a buddy of his who was employed by the airline dragged him up front, providing him with an aerial perspective of the untamed terrain he would eventually call home. For Marty, it was like gazing down from heaven at his destiny. His first Alaskan home wasn't even on land when he eventually got there. It was a floating logging camp close to the island of Prince of Wales, bobbing on the water, completely off-grid. Back then, logging was beautiful, hard work, and Marty got there in time to witness the final phase of that way of life. The trees were huge. They would divide them into 40-foot chunks, join them to form enormous rafts, and then construct whole residences directly on top. Trailers, fourplexes, and homes. From one remote bay to the next, everything was towed on these floating platforms. Following his marriage to his girlfriend, Molly Roll, Marty and Molly were drawn to venture even further into the forest, away from cities, highways, and all of the conveniences that most people take for granted. Eventually, around 30 miles north of Hannes, close to the beaches of Chilkoot Lake, they constructed their first house. They choose it for more reasons than just the picture-perfect views, even though it was a stunning location. A natural food source was provided by the abundance of spawning salmon in the surrounding streams. Bears are drawn to salmon, of course, and there are many of them. Massive brown bears roamed the area as if they owned it, and Marty subsequently characterized those early days as utterly chaotic. They are all vying for the watershed's glistening coo salmon. Moving from one isolated area of Alaska to another, Marty and Molly persevered through years of wilderness suffering until settling outside of Hannes, which is still very much bear country. Their shared life became as rough and unvarnished as the surrounding terrain. They soon welcomed 4 children into their family. However, those initial years weren't simple. To put food on the table for Molly and their newborn daughter, Melanie, Marty put in endless hours of work. Then a scary moment arrived. A hazardous situation prompted them to board an emergency bush plane head for Whitehorse in the Yukon Territory when Molly went into labor on the ranch. Melanie was delivered there without incident. Later, Marty would speak candidly about those periods, describing them as true hard-crable times. Sometimes he hoped to catch a solitary salmon along the edge of Chilkoot Lake, just enough to feed himself and Molly for the night, but after long back-breaking hours of logging, he would return home fatigued, hungry, and thinner by the week. Despite how difficult it was, he frequently said that those challenges molded him in ways that nothing else could. Misty, the Raneys' third child, was born in 1979, the same year they moved to the Wasilla region. Marty had been edging closer to this new spot, which was near the shadow of Denali National Park, for years. He entered the realm of mountain adventures at this point. In 1986, he made his first ascent of Denali, and it was an event that will always be imprinted in his mind. Tears were running down his face as he pushed toward the last 20 feet of the summit, tears that instantly solidified in the bitter cold. He was in awe as he stood at the topmost top of North America. No one felt the need to plant a flag or cheer. Rather, the 360 degrees of towering hills and jagged, snowy wilderness that stretched eternally in all directions made him feel small, humbled, and overshadowed. That unadulterated, breathtaking vista was identical to the one he had fallen in love with. From the 737 cockpit years before, he felt most comfortable in the untamed, harsh, and wild world. He started formally leading excursions by 1998. And Marty just changed gears when the climbing season was cut short by Alaska's harsh winters. After establishing Alaska Stone and Log, he focused on constructing and renovating homesteads with the most basic supplies: stone, lumber, and grit. The Raneys welcomed the bravery and patience required to live off the grid. Living without running water, heating, electricity, or plumbing, they learned to feel the rhythm of the soil. Eventually, the hostile surroundings not only put them to the test, but also made them stronger. Marty was a natural guide for documentary teams during the 1990s due to his extensive knowledge of Alaska and his musical background. In 1997, he assisted in directing the crew that was filming Alaska Spirit of the Wild. Additionally, he worked as a climber, musician, and second cameraman for Climb Against the Odds for 2 years, but it wasn't until 2013 that he had his big break on the National Geographic Channel's Ultimate Survival Alaska, which ran from 2013 to 2016. Teams faced harsh terrain, harsh weather, and obstacles that appeared to have been created by Mother Nature on a bad day. The show threw expert survivalists into the middle of Alaska's vast wilderness and essentially said, "Good luck." Marty stood out from the first minute he emerged. To be honest, it was easy to understand why. He wasn't merely portraying a tough outdoor character, he was one. He navigated that environment as if he knew it intimately, having lived off the land for almost 40 years. As if cleaning his own garden, viewers watched him hunt, fish, trap, and make shelters out of natural materials. He was a competitor to be feared and a favorite to watch because of his tenacity, quick thinking, and composure under duress. The show garnered a lot of attention for its gripping depiction of Alaska's perils, including treacherous terrain, blizzards that looked almost deliberately cruel, and cliff climbs that made palms sweat. The absence of a cash prize, trophy, or enormous check, however, was possibly the most bizarre twist. It was all about taking pleasure in your ability to compete with the Alaskan outdoors. However, following the conclusion of Ultimate Survival Alaska, Marty's notoriety really took off. In 2016, he became the lifeblood of Homestead Rescue, marking the beginning of his next chapter. He didn't come up with the idea. Marty was presented with an idea from the Discovery Channel that they billed as a return to their early, genuine boots-on-the-ground aesthetic. The mission was what caught Marty's attention. Genuine people, genuine issues, and real fixes. Just assisting poor homesteaders in surviving. No phony drama. Marty went on to say that Discovery had done a fantastic job of identifying participants. Normal folks who were living off the grid for their own reasons, rather than the stereotyped apocalyptic types that TV frequently favors. He commended the network for looking for real families that are attempting to live a life outside of the contemporary world. His kids, Misty and Matt, joined in the effort after a month of contemplation, turning the series into a full-fledged family business. However, Marty had a major requirement: sincerity. Staged conflicts and screenplays didn't appeal to him. He desired authentic encounters, real stakes, and unadulterated emotion. Because Marty sees each homesteader for the first time upon his arrival, the producers agreed. There is genuine tension, vulnerability, and urgency in every scene. Marty thinks Homestead Rescue is a more genuine series than Ultimate Survival Alaska, and when you see what the Raneys do, you can see why. Every episode features a character attempting to live off the land, but failing in risky ways. Food shortages, unclean water, risks to wildlife, deteriorating infrastructure, or unforgiving weather. The Raneys don't suddenly become famous. They come as practical problem solvers. They examine the problems, pinpoint the family's most pressing needs, and devise a strategy to turn the farmhouse into something secure, long-lasting, and useful. Every member of the family contributes a specialization: hunting, trekking, trapping, constructing shelters, and reading the terrain like a well-known tale. Marty is the master of the wild. Misty, the sustainability specialist, uses animals and gardens to improve food systems. Matt is the artisan, a builder who can transform unfinished materials into robust, useful constructions. When combined, they act as a lifeline, saving lives when others are in danger and assisting struggling aspirants in transforming survival into a genuine way of life. The Raney family faces difficulties that would be too much for most people to handle throughout the series. We're talking about harsh weather, erratic fauna, and unexpected setbacks that might quickly undo months of development. However, their resolve remains unwavering in each episode. Their goal remains unchanged: assist homesteaders in recovering their land, re-establishing their future, and reminding them of the initial motivation behind their travel. You can also notice the change by the end of each story. Families leave with a homestead that is far more habitable, efficient, and sustainable. The Raneys' experience, inventiveness, and unwavering work ethic are all responsible for this. Marty and his family are renowned for their inventiveness in the building industry. They make every effort to repurpose anything they come across on the job site, transforming leftover materials, scrap, or abandoned buildings into ingenious, useful fixes. However, the team looks to the network for assistance when a problem is too large or risky to handle with the resources at hand. Discovery provides the funding required to make the necessary modifications whenever the circumstances call for a major upgrade. At a time when many viewers are considering living closer to the land, Homestead Rescue has received recognition for its emphasis on self-sufficiency and sustainable living. However, it has received criticism, just like the majority of reality shows. A few scenes, according to some observers, seem unduly dramatic or produced for television, raising questions about how authentic the rescue operation is. Marty Raney gained notoriety in 2018 for a completely unexpected cause after a spectacular incident involving a drone operator. Marty challenged drone pilot Justin Pursley while he was operating his brand new drone in the Hatcher Pass region because he thought he was being filmed without authorization. The scenario rapidly got worse. Pursley filed for a restraining order after Marty damaged Play's drone. Raney said that the drone had been following him around his property at extremely low altitudes and that he thought the flight was unlawful because he had called a trooper dispatcher about it. Remarkably, the altercation ended far more amicably than it started. Later that morning, the two guys decided to meet in the parking lot of a grocery shop to discuss the situation. According to Pursley, Marty expressed regret and gave him the entire drone's purchase price in cash at this meeting. After that, Pursley informed the courthouse to withdraw the request for a restraining order. Social media was used by both guys to tell their stories, which immediately attracted attention and generated conflicting views. When Marty was sharpening his chainsaw, he heard a buzzing sound and looked up to discover a drone floating right above him and his home. Later, he claimed that as he made his way back to his car, the drone trailed him for almost 1,000 feet. Conversely, Play clarified that when Marty came up to them, he and his father-in-law were only experimenting with the new drone from a public pull-off. When the TV personality wanted to know why they had been flying over his property, he remembered being shocked to see Raney's trademark cowboy hat. According to Pursley's father-in-law, the drone had been flying high enough to stay off private property. The stories diverged once more when the troops arrived. While Marty said the trooper was uncertain and said he didn't know the nuances of drone law in that location, Play said cops reassured him the drone flight was legal. Later, trooper spokeswoman Megan Peters stated that until the designated trooper could be contacted, specifics were still unknown. Raney shared an update on his social media profile shortly after the incident, stating that he had been thinking about it for hours while driving across Alaska. He apologized for damage and offered to replace Pursley's drone. Pursley claims that they reconnected. Marty expressed regret and paid the full cost of the drone. Pursley even turned down Raney's offer to record drone footage for a future project. Then, in 2020, Marty encountered yet another round of criticism from the public. This time, it was for a song that had come back to him from his past. Adam and Steve, a song from his 1997 album, started making the rounds on the internet and received a lot of backlash for its homophobic content. The final song stood out for its remark against the increasing acceptance of homosexuality. Even if the majority of the CD was made up of innocuous country melodies, the song's lyrics ridiculed gay pride, alluded to antiquated beliefs, and compared them with what Raney saw as conventional partnerships. After reporting on the disappearance of production assistant Terrence Woods, the subject reappeared within a broader discussion about the culture of the workplace on some Discovery shows. According to some former crew members, the atmosphere was hostile and unsupportive of new ideas. Raney's decades-old song received fresh attention within the larger conversation. In response, the Discovery Project's affiliated production company Raw said they were stunned by the song's content and had no idea it existed. They made it clear that they disagreed with the message. The same position was taken by All3 Media America, which had just started co-producing Homestead Rescue, stating that they did not agree with any of the opinions stated in the song. In a separate statement, Discovery also distanced the network from the song and emphasized that it did not align with their beliefs or the show's essence. The network never made it clear if they intended to initiate an internal investigation or take any other action against Raney. But Homestead Rescue continued to air in spite of all the commotion and criticism surrounding the event. Nothing, no pauses, no delays. As if nothing had happened, it remained locked into Discovery's lineup. A catastrophe that no one could have foreseen then struck, when a sudden, terrible fire destroyed Marty and Molly's cottage in 2021. Life on the Raney Ranch drastically changed. The family was devastated by the loss. Everything they depended on was gone in an instant, despite years of work being put into the structure over several seasons. The fireplace chimney was initially thought to be the most likely culprit. The catastrophe might have been caused by the design's ability to withstand extreme heat. The timing couldn't have been worse for the Raneys. The family was abruptly faced with a complete renovation while battling frigid temperatures as winter rapidly approached. The strain was tremendous, and the stakes were huge. Some fans questioned whether the tragedy was being overblown for dramatic effect because Discovery mainly relied on the fire to market the upcoming season. However, as flames spread throughout the cabin, Marty posted a video in real time pleading for assistance, highlighting the gravity of the situation. In spite of desperate attempts, the building was completely destroyed by the fire within minutes. Fans became eager as parts of the plot were revealed in promotional materials. Instead of brief glances dispersed throughout several episodes, many desired straight answers. This gradual release raised questions about whether the tragedy was being used as a plot device rather than a factual narrative. Discovery, however, insisted that the fire was real and described it as the Raney family's worst obstacle to date. They conveyed a sense of urgency in their portrayal of the upcoming season. With winter threatening every step and a heartbreaking loss driving them to put in more effort than ever, the family is frantically trying to rebuild. Nevertheless, the dearth of comprehensive footage, along with earlier claims that some parts of the series were manufactured, exacerbated the ongoing controversy. A few devoted viewers continued to have reservations. The show's image was impacted by the behind-the-scenes stories that former contestants had already shared with the public. Kim and Josh Zabek, who appeared in the second episode of the first season, caused one early issue. When the Raneys came to visit, the couple was already operating Revolutionary Roots Farms, a successful business. However, they were shown in the episode as poor homesteaders whose pigs had created a disastrous situation. Later, the Zabeks filed a lawsuit, arguing that the program had misrepresented their reality. They clarified that the dramatic moments that spectators witnessed were staged, including overblown plotlines intended to increase tension and dead animals that weren't theirs. They said that up until now, the production team had never taken artistic license. Kim and Josh were both shocked by the way their farmhouse had been portrayed, even though the outcome of their case was never made public. Marty's tone of response was surprisingly compassionate. He remembers having a good experience working with Kim and stated that he didn't want to criticize the marriage because she hadn't said anything bad about him specifically. More varied but generally favorable experiences were recounted by other individuals. Season 2 cast members Ren and EIE told the Ozark County Times they were excited to be part of the project. They were quick to commend the Raney family, even though they acknowledged that producers modified their story for television, emphasizing errors, leaving out the fact that their cottage was constructed by a professional firm, and even showing them using tools in odd ways. They said that Marty was a very diligent man who continued to construct even after the cameras stopped. The Kentucky Raines family shared similar thoughts. They disclosed that the narrative for their episode was influenced by the production crew asking them to identify the projects they intended to take on. They recalled Marty's chainsaw prowess with fondness, and marveled at how fast he carved a wooden bear while filming. They stressed the Raneys' sincere generosity throughout the process, even if they admitted that some scenes were replayed for television. Then, there was the Kondash family from Oregon, who had absolutely no problems. They greeted the Homestead rescue team with open arms as they dealt with the demise of their woodmill company and extreme financial difficulty. They were able to stabilize their homestead, restructure their business, and resume operations with the assistance of the Raneys. They attribute their current success to the show, which helped them turn things around. When taken as a whole, these tales provide a fascinating yet complicated picture. A program that combines television storytelling with actual adversity, a family dealing with public scrutiny and natural disasters, and a group of homesteaders whose lives were impacted by the Raneys' direction, sometimes in untidy ways and other times in positive ways.